So just taking a posture that you feel like you can maintain with minimal movement. If you feel the urge to move at any point during the sit, you can feel free to do so, but generally trying to achieve some level of stillness in the body. And then either closing your eyes or softening your gaze a few feet out in front of you if you feel called to have them open. Taking a few deep breaths in and out, allowing the body to give its weight to the chair on the out breath. Noticing any areas where you might be holding some tension and just inviting those areas to soften. Just as best as we're able, not trying to force any relaxation, really trying to connect the mind to whatever area of our body the attention has found itself in. And just allowing any softening can help to, at a moderate pace, starting at the top of the head, just to run the awareness through the various parts of the body, noticing what our experience feels like in that area. Never rushing, just allowing a natural pace to arise as we run our attention through. If we notice any thoughts that draw our attention away from the experience of the body, we can just gently let those go, allow our attention to return to our lived experience of the body. And running your attention through your body, you may have noticed some movement around the breath, maybe in the abdomen or the chest or the shoulders and the rise and fall of the breath. Perhaps the sensation was internal in the filling, the expansion and contraction of the lungs, maybe in the coolness and the dryness of the throat as the air passes over, then the warmth of the exhale. Maybe in the nostrils, if you're breathing through your nose. Perhaps right at the lips where the air passes over. Just allowing our attention to rest wherever the feeling of the breath is most predominant. And then gently opening the eyes, reconnecting with your fellow meditators. So I'm going to speak just briefly about what metta is and what the practice consists of, and then I'm going to lay out kind of the course of what we're going to walk through today in terms of applying that practice of metta to our experience right now, dealing with COVID-19 specifically. So uh, the practice of metta is all about generating an intention to uh, send loving kindness to, in its broadest sense, all sentient beings, but it typically walks through a progression of specific recipients of the loving kindness. So the loving kindness, oftentimes people get tripped up with that translation. What we're talking about here is a general sense of well-wishing, of really truly caring about the well-being of the other person or of yourself if you're directing the metta towards yourself. And another kind of stumbling block that people often have when they're starting with the practice can be around uh, when they start the practice, they say, well, there is no feeling of metta right now towards whoever I'm, attempting to send it to. Uh, Really, this is more of about the intention and cultivating an intention to have uh, metta kind of be our embodied state. So it would be similar to if you sat down at a piano and you didn't know how to play the piano. You don't sit down and start to try to play and say, oh, I don't know how to play. I'm failing at playing the piano. This is a practice, one where if you apply yourself, if you apply effort and concentration, then gradually the intention will bear fruit. So really, if at any point today you realize like, okay, there's not any metta present towards the person that we're directing it towards, there's really no problem with that. The intention itself and the repeated application of it is what actually leads to the mind state arising. So one of the things that's important to talk about in terms of our current experience is that when metta meets suffering, the suffering of another or the suffering of ourselves, it kind of transmutes into compassion. So when we wish well upon someone and we see that they aren't well, it can often turn into a feeling of wishing that they would be alleviated from whatever is causing their suffering. So metta goes kind of above and beyond the neutral state, hoping for them to experience happiness, pleasant feelings, safety. And then compassion is kind of if they're in a negative state, it's wishing upon them that they would be free from whatever is causing their suffering. So at any point today, you could really take either of those approaches. Given the fact that I am going to focus on some of the groups specifically around the lens of what we're dealing with the global pandemic, you may find that one is more available to you than another. You may find that you can easily wish well upon these groups of people, or you may find that you just hope for the alleviation of their suffering. Or, like I said in the beginning, you may just be trying to cultivate an intention to have metta arise or an intention to have compassion arise. Any of those would be in line with what we're trying to do today in the practice. So there's two main approaches that I'm familiar with in terms of metta practice, and one is more of a mantra-based meditation where we repeat phrases. Uh, the traditional phrases are, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you live with ease. So there's a visualization component where we bring up an image of the person or being that we're directing the metta towards. And then the phrases are repeated over and over with the intention of it arousing some metta. Another approach is if there is a specific person or being that gives rise to this general sense of well wishing very naturally, you can bring that person to mind and then take that feeling and radiate it out towards the other groups. So, for me personally, I found that to be an easier practice. I bring to mind my grandmother, who was notorious for sitting around and wishing well on people. And I'm filled with the same feelings that she sent out. And then I send that out to others. So you can try on at any point uh, throughout this, one or the other. Uh, and that's actually how we're going to start right now is we're just going to think to ourselves, is there anybody who I do right now wish well upon? Somebody that I'm friendly with, that I hope that they're happy. I hope that they're well. And we're going to bring that person to mind. And then we're going to either radiate out those feelings towards that person, or we're going to use the phrases. So I'll say the phrases and intermix in some of the radiating qualities. But either of those will do, and I'll be there to guide you throughout the meditation. So, and then afterwards we'll do a discussion about what our experience was, and then we'll start into different groups of people and bringing it in through the lens of the coronavirus that we're dealing with. So you can resume whatever posture you found to be beneficial in the first meditation that we did. And again, just bringing the attention into the body, noticing whatever we're feeling there. There's a predominant experience. Really connecting with the somatic or the felt experience of the body. And then calling to mind an image of a person or a group of people or of an animal, cute dog or kitten, squirrel, any being that you genuinely wish well upon. You hope for their well being. Just staying connected with the body as you bring forth this image of this person or thoughts of the person. Noticing any thoughts of well wishing that are naturally arising. Noticing any reactions in the body to those feelings. We aren't looking for somebody that we know we should wish well upon. We're looking for a being that we do wish well upon. And if we're inclined to use phrases to wish well upon this person or being, we might begin with the thought, may you be happy. And it can be helpful to imagine this person happy or this being happy. May your happiness continue. Again, remaining connected with the body, noticing how it feels to wish well, to wish for another's happiness. And then recognizing that safety is not a guarantee. And so we wish safety towards this person. You can either radiate those feelings out or use the phrase, may you be safe. Perhaps imagining them safe, protected, free from harm. And then wishing that they be happy, healthy, free from any internal threats to their safety. And if they are healthy, rejoicing in that health. If they aren't healthy, then wishing for the alleviation of whatever sickness is afflicting them. Staying connected with the body, noticing how it feels to wish for the health and well-being of the being that we've chosen. Then wishing that they would be free from any mental afflictions, that they would live with ease, have ease of mind, to live with a peaceful mind. Free from any attachment or need for this to actually be the case, and just resting in the well wishing. Then gently opening the eyes, reconnecting with the group. So just opening up the floor to anybody who feels called to ask any questions or share their experience. Really, nothing is off limits as long as it's true to your own personal experience. So, if you, I think that I can unmute everyone. I have to figure out how to do that. Okay. So anybody can feel free to bring up anything that happens to be on your mind about the experience.
I'll go.
Please.
Okay, so I felt like this was like very much like a prayer that I would normally do,
Mm-hmm.
except that when you said like, you should focus on something that you normally like, you shouldn't feel like you should, focus on one particular thing or the other, or one being or the other. And I found that a little challenging because I guess normally when I pray, it's more of like I pray for a group of people, my family or this, and to hyper focus on one being made it seem like I was ignoring other people. And that would kind of, I don't know, it stimulated some weird feelings in my body and my brain. I kept like shooting back and forth, and that was quite challenging.
That's great. I love the pup. Oh, wow. We got a little visitor. That's wonderful. So that's a great reflection. I mean, those are the sorts of things that, the sorts of insights into our experience that are really invaluable, exploring that further. I don't have anything to say about, it should be this way or that way. Uh, when I gave that instruction, my intention was to have us look into, there are sometimes people that we feel responsible for, or people that we generally have a sense that this is the person that I should wish well upon, right? And maybe it's a struggle for us to do so versus someone who actually who that just naturally gives rise to the feelings of well wishing, right? Where uh, I may think like, oh, let me give an example. I don't know if anybody here has kids, but I'm just going to use kids as an example, right? As a parent, you may feel like you're responsible for your children and you should wish well upon them. But maybe at this point, they're driving you crazy, right? That might be a reflexive thing for you to say, okay, I'm going to choose my child. But in that moment, the arising of metta isn't freely available to you when you bring them to mind. I want to avoid any judgment, self-judgment around that, because really what we're trying to do is we're trying to dispose the mind towards a feeling of metta, right? As we do that, we condition more metta to arise in the future. It's not so much about uh, I need to focus on this one person who I should feel metta towards, and that's going to be my practice. If we start with just very easeful, where it feels very bountiful and it naturally arises, that's a great place to start to actually condition further metta. So we'll see as we go along that we might go into some groups where it's pretty difficult to send metta towards them. Uh, and so we want to have that wellspring, that place that we can kind of come back uh, to regenerate the feelings of metta. That was my intention in that. So, but thank you so much for sharing. Anyone else?
I'll go.
Great.
So with my experience as like, while I had my eyes closed trying to focus on one individual, it was a little difficult at first. And then the more that I kind of repeated those phrases in my head that you repeated, and thought those feelings towards that individual, I started to kind of feel this surrounding warmth within myself, almost like what I was sending to them was sort of coming back in like a circular sort of way. And as we went further and further on, in my mind's eye, I started to see not only them, but like an outline almost of like a heart, like almost just feeling, it almost felt like I could feel love, which I thought was really interesting. It felt nice. It felt like, um, I felt intentional almost, I guess. So,
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. The This is to me one of the more amazing things about this practice is that as you do it and as you cultivate this intention, the you really can get better at loving. That it's not just necessarily something that you're born with, or you're you have a fixed amount of love that you can give. Uh, it really can open up well springs. It's actually referred to in the tradition I practice in as one of the boundless qualities. So it's something that you can send to everyone without depleting, and it can continuously increase in size and intensity. So, and really, it's just again, we sit down, we bring the intention of cultivating metta, and that's what does the work. And if ever we don't feel it, we can just rest in the fact that we're practicing. If we apply energy, we cannot fail. Eventually, it'll come in whatever measure is available to us. So I think we have time for one more. Somebody wants to share?
I'll share. I thought it was another kind of push pull, I guess, that I found a little bit challenging was you mentioned uh, separating the need for this person to be well from just sending well wishes when I already felt like I need this person to be well. I don't know. I found that kind of difficult to separate as well.
Yeah, that's one of the most challenging aspects, at least in my experience, and a lot of other meditators. One of the most challenging aspects is separating the need from the realization of that wish or the actualization of that wish from the felt sense of wishing that towards the person. So again, in the tradition that I practice in, there's what's called the near enemy and the far enemy of metta. And the far enemy is ill will. So, wishing bad things to happen to somebody. So that's pretty self-evident when that's happening, can be. Don't want to speak out of turn there. Sometimes it hides itself. But uh, the near enemy is attachment to the things actually coming true. So, and the reason why it's referred to as like an enemy is because what happens is if we wish well upon that person, then it doesn't come true. The meta actually gets destroyed and is replaced by something like disappointment or fear or anger, one of those mind states. And so it's definitely a very challenging aspect, and I wouldn't, judge myself on, in just starting this practice. I wouldn't judge myself like, oh, I'm attached, I'm doing the practice wrong. Just noticing, bringing our awareness to the fact that we do have some expectation of that coming true uh, is very helpful in starting to differentiate between, oh, right now I feel like I'm not attached to the outcome, but over here I feel like I am. So we start to see the difference. And each day it'll come, can be a completely different experience. I can say with a significant amount of confidence that through repeatedly doing the practice, you will find times where you're aware, right now I'm free from attachment to an outcome, and other times where you find, right now there's some grasping at this thing actually coming true. So thank you so much to everybody who shared. That's very helpful. Just checking in, seeing how we feel after having heard the share out. Closing the eyes again. So for the next portion of this meditation, we're going to call to mind an individual, a specific individual who right now might be experiencing some challenges. And that individual is ourself. The self can be a particularly challenging being to send metta towards. First off, it can feel a little awkward to turn our attentions to ourselves and genuinely wish well upon ourselves. Some people are more familiar with this than others, but traditionally, the self is a very important, being to send metta towards. It's almost like that analogy of putting the oxygen mask on ourselves before we put it on others when we're on a plane and find ourselves in an emergency situation. So we're going to try to put the oxygen mask on ourselves now. So again, it's going to be important to recognize what our experience is right now. How do we feel? Do we feel easeful, happy, safe, well? If we do, then we can wish for those things to continue or to grow. If we don't, then we can wish for the alleviation of those things. Again, just bringing the intention to wish rather than an attachment to those things actually coming true. And if we see that the attachment is there, then just knowing this is the feeling that I have when I'm attached to a specific outcome. And if at any time you feel like you need to tap back into that wellspring of metta that you found in the easeful person, the person that you found arose spontaneously when you did the first meditation, you can switch beings back to them. So bringing an image of yourself to mind, can help to almost have a third person view, recognizing that we're like others. We want to be happy, we want to be safe, we want to be well, we want to live with ease. And allowing that knowledge to manifest in a feeling of well-wishing, of friendliness towards ourselves. Maybe starting with the phrase, may you be happy, may I be happy, depending on whether you're doing it from a first person or a third person view. May I be happy. If upon reflecting you find that there's unhappiness present, may I be free from unhappiness. May the circumstances of my life change such that happiness arises. Just staying connected with the body, noticing how it feels to wish well upon ourselves, to wish for our own happiness. And then noticing that there's a real and immediate danger right now to our health. Just wishing for whatever health we have, for that to be maintained and to grow, and that any risk to our health be alleviated. May I be healthy. Just like all beings wish to be healthy, I too wish for my own health. May it be so. And then bringing to mind a wish that whatever external threats there are to our safety, that we would be alleviated from those. May I be safe. Noticing whether there are feelings of safety. If there are, wishing for those to continue and to grow. And if there aren't, wishing that the conditions might be such that we find ourselves safe, protected. And then recognizing that in these times of uncertainty and significant difficulty, that we genuinely wish for ourselves that we would live with a sense of ease. That our mental burden would not be exaggerated, that we could find some sense of peace in our situation. May I live with ease. And then gently opening the eyes. Reconnecting with the group. Noticing again how we feel in the body and in the mind. And just staying present. Seeing if anything arises that we want to share or any questions that we have. Floor is open to anyone. I think you should be able to unmute yourselves. If you can't, just raise your hand. And I'll be sure that you can unmute you.
Hi, it's Stuart. Um, just wanted to say that I often do meta for myself before I do meta for others because I have a really hard time um, being compassionate to myself. And once I start to open myself, it actually comes easier for me. Although I used my daughter as my object the last time, and she's grown up, so um, that's not hard to access. But except for immediate things like that, I usually have to start with myself. And sometimes I stay with myself for a really long time.
Yeah. How did you find it just now, if I can ask?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I appreciated it. It was good. Yeah,
It's
thanks.
great. Thank you.
Mhm.
I'll go. I I find it a little bit easier to concentrate when it's towards myself because uh, I know myself the best and I kind of know all the things that are going on with, with my life. So it's easier to concentrate, but I also find it hard to develop all those uh, feelings of loving kindness because there is a lot of self criticism throughout my daily life all the time. So
Yep.
it is very helpful, but it's hard to develop those sometimes.
Yep. Yeah, it can be very challenging. There's a lot of self-talk that goes unnoticed as we go through our day and we're doing things. Uh, there's a very famous story from Sharon Salzberg, who's one of the she's the premier Metta teachers in the United States. She's kind of made that her specialty, and she was doing a long retreat specifically focused around Metta, and uh, she had been very critical of herself. And at some point, she found that she had to leave the retreat. Something had happened in the outside world that had caused her to have to cut her retreat short. And as she was packing, she spilled something from her toiletries, like a lotion or a powder or something. And she said to herself, "You're such a klutz, but I love you." And that was not a normal thing to arise. So that's something that, I hope is inspiring and gives hope that this is another area that we can develop loving feelings towards. Um, it's definitely within our abilities to do so. Um, Even if we find it difficult, you can always go back to your wellspring, um, and you may find that through the course of doing this practice and directing the attention to yourself, that it does provide some pretty significant benefits in terms of any self-criticism or judgment that happens throughout the course of our lives. Um, so just want to make sure that we do one last group. We're gonna try to do a group of people, a big group, okay? People who are near and dear to our hearts right now, some of whom are with us right now. So just closing our eyes. Just bringing to mind all of the healthcare workers who are working right now to help alleviate the suffering of others, to keep people safe, to help make them healthy. If you yourself are a healthcare worker, there may be some pretty significant things that come up during this meditation. If you ever feel like you need to switch to another focus or being, you can feel free to do so. But Just setting the intention to cultivate metta towards those who are working on the front lines to protect us, to heal us. May they all be happy. Noticing any skepticism that might arise in that wish. How could we be happy right now? That's a good question to ask. I believe it's possible. There are always glimmers of hope, but we do have to look for them, especially right now in these trying times. But again, reconnecting with the intention to wish well upon these people. May they be happy. And recognizing the clear and present danger that they face in carrying out their work on a daily basis. And just feeling an upwelling of wishing for their safety and well-being. May they be protected. And again, just reestablishing whatever visualization helps you to picture the group, even if it's just an individual who stands in as the archetype for all healthcare workers, trying to connect with them as a group, calling to mind wishes for their health. May they remain healthy as they navigate through the very real dangers that threaten their health right now. May their well-being continue. And to those who have already been afflicted, may their health recover quickly. May their suffering be short. Then recognizing the very real mental toll that this is likely having on all of them. Wishing that they might live with ease, that they might find strength in their daily work. And living with ease in this time might look differently. It might be a bit more energetic. It might look like courage. And whenever they have time off, may they find rest. May they feel restored by whatever break they have. Recognizing that we genuinely depend on these people. Sending them all the well wishes that we can muster. Reflecting on our interconnectedness. And then gently opening the eyes. I want to respect everybody's time. And so I just want to thank everybody from the bottom of my heart for coming. It's an honor to sit with you and to provide guidance. It's amazing. And if you'd like to receive information on more events like these, you can just reach out to myself. I think that you should have been provided with an email for me in the invite. But thank you everybody for coming. Great sitting with you. Thank you so much.